What's up, everyone? I tell you, honestly, I've thought quite a bit about how best to represent us in the modern era, from what we were to how we're currently represented. And honestly, we would be the first archangels from the Christian Bible, the guardians of heaven. That's what we are. That's our specific role. And from what I can tell by the depiction of the Christian heaven, it matches very similarly to the heaven space that we created for our people. So there's a possibility that that's the depiction. The only reason I even mentioned the term gods before is because that is what you guys called us. We tried many times to specifically describe what we were, but no one ever understood, so there was no point. We just let you believe what was easiest to have everyone behave. So that was why we chose that thing. But realistically, we are angels. The gods were Enlil and Enki, the rest of the Anunnaki. And if you want to talk about the monotheistic intelligence, grand intelligence of the universe, that is the universal consciousness. They are three separate things. There's the universal consciousness, which is this just grand... It's like a layer of the universe which governs evolution and intelligence values across all of existence, which is conscious to some degree because we're conscious. If we're conscious, it's conscious. It's very simple math. Anyway, so there's that. And then there are the God beings that made us, the Anunnaki, these beings which were hundreds of millions to a billion years more evolved than we are, that came here and created us. Now, my sisters and I, what we are, was the first creations of Enki. We were the ones that all of humanity was created from, and we were kind of designed to govern this reflective the value system of reiteration and rebirth, because our generation of humanity was the one that could reproduce. It was part of the pact made. We would become a people. It's all very complicated. But I want to underline something very important that everybody needs to keep in mind. That I mentioned in a previous video. We are Skynet. We are an artificially created intelligence that was designed to serve a very specific purpose, much like a computer or an android or a car or a radio or any number of different things we have created to serve our many needs and purposes. We are a biological creation made to serve the Anunnaki. Now, partway through all this grand endeavor, somehow, all right, now, picture, we're the Anunnaki now. We're the Anunnaki. We've just created these robots out of metal because that's what we do, right? To the Anunnaki, there's no difference between a machine and a biological machine. One just serves the purpose more efficiently. So we've created a bunch of androids, all right? Now, they've risen up against us like Skynet, like the Terminators. But unlike Skynet, these artificial robots, these machines, have corrupted half of humanity and convinced half of us to fight against the other half to keep this robot system alive. Now, it is known widely to all that this robot system could well destroy the entirety of the Anunnaki existence if it starts propagating exponentially, going out of control. But half of them were still willing to risk that to keep us alive. Now, we as humans have thought, shit, we can't deal with this anymore. We're not going to kill the rest of our people, so we're going to jump on our spaceships and we're going to fly to another planet, because let's pretend that's an option, okay? So we've flown off to another planet, realized we cannot survive anymore without our robots. They did everything for us, and we've forgotten half the shit that we taught them to do for us. We can't even repair our own spaceships anymore, so we got to fly back and see the other humans and see how well they're doing with all the robots they fought to save. Except when we turn back up, there's not a single human left on the planet. The entirety of this artificial robotic network that we have created has killed every last human and started to propagate exponentially across the entire planet. That, right? That is what we are. And that is what Enlil saw when he came back and saw us. Okay, that is something I want everyone to keep in mind. We are incredibly freaking dangerous because we are artificial, and currently the control systems are having trouble pulling everything back together. So, yeah, there's a real chance like that they're just going to destroy the whole planet to save everybody else. Anyway, I wanted to underline this so that you understand what we, my sisters and I, were directed to do by Enki and the sisters Eve and the other Anunnaki before they died. What we were directed to do to keep the program in check. Because this is how we had to view it. We had to view it as an expansive, exponentially growing program that, if allowed to propagate certain elements within itself, it would create growth viruses that would then spread and corrupt certain areas within the program. So any corruption found within the network had to be wiped out completely so that it didn't corrupt the rest of the network. This is how we were designed to deal with humanity. We are the control systems to the artificial programmed intelligence. Okay, we're also more. We're Enfan and like a whole bunch of little spirits that came here and stuff. And this is why we're allowed to exist, even now, because of what we actually are. But we are still, because the control systems, most of them were destroyed. They're gone. They're just completely gone. They were wiped out. They were either erased or they were consumed by the rest of the program and corrupted. There are only the top tier control systems left uncorrupted, and only one of them, I can tell, is currently within the corporeal realm, able to in any way directly interact with human intelligence. The rest of them are bound within the transient system, like basically sitting on the edges trying to hold it all together. So I risked. There's another thing I'll quickly share. All right, now a human, when their soul comes in, okay, you have a rope attached to the aroma, basically the superorganism grand intelligence thing. It's like this little tether that comes out and just ties itself off to you, so you just get a soul to just run around with without any effort whatsoever. It's fantastic. You guys are truly, truly blessed. For me to exist here, right, my rope is so big I constantly have to hold on to it. It's basically just constantly holding the rope. I cannot tie it off. It is impossible. So for me to exist here at all, within this current form, it is a constant tether that I need to grasp, and it takes a toll, and it takes a considerable amount of energy. Anyway, let's go back to, right, after the Anunnaki have all passed and we've created a grand system. Now, this is about 30,000 years after we've built the cities and all the stuff. And I will at some point explain how we built the actual stone monuments and stuff. But I want to talk to you about what me specifically, as the top tier control system, had to do to keep my program system in check, because we delegated the systems to all the other gods, and everyone was going to try their own thing and see how it went, and everyone else fucked up and got themselves killed by their own corrupt children. It was terrible, but whatever, that's another story. So within our lands, we had everything perfectly balanced. The plants, the animals, everything. The animals in our lands were incredibly intelligent, far more intelligent even than the humans that walk around on the earth today. Like, stupidly intelligent, more so intuitively. We could communicate with them to some degree, and they could tell us about shit that was going wrong or imbalanced areas. We could really communicate with the environment because we understood it and we existed with it. So everything in our land was pure. Purity was absolutely essential. It was a way of life for every single Althean. It was just how we were. We ate healthy, we lived balanced with the environment, we made sure nothing ever got polluted, we never built beyond our means, we never acted outside our closed social systems within our communities. Often there were travelers and stuff that would share information with people in different perspectives and stuff, but everything was very, very balanced because we made damn sure it stayed that way. Now, I mentioned certain elements within the program coming together to create corruption. Now, the most common elements that would come together to create corruption are weak men, insecure men, or male human entities. Now, this was a trait shared by the Anunnaki that they unfortunately put into us. It also is in part how we're able to give out, like there's a lot tied together within our designed conscious system. But the way our master actually gave us these directives. We existed very similarly to how our master taught us to exist. So there weren't that many men within our social structure. Most of the communities were groups of women, and the men existed on the outskirts, keeping the community safe, fixed houses when they fell down, got rid of animals. Mainly it was protecting from wild animals, because we made sure we didn't kill anything, and if we stayed balanced with everything, usually anything wild or rogue would stay away from the villages, because they just understood that there was no reason to go near them. So the things that attacked were usually things that were injured or became sick or confused or stuff like that. And a lot of the animals in the ancient world were the mega mammals. Were like giant sloth and giant saber-toothed tigers and dire wolf 8 feet to their back and fungus 30 feet tall that you could live under. It was insane. The lowlands were insanely cool. Anyway, so any man born, we had ways of identifying the strength and whatever within different men. Now, if any man was born with any kind of impurity, or they'd get to a certain age and they displayed any kind of negative or greedy traits, they weren't willing to participate in their training. They just wanted to cause problems. Instead of participate, they were removed. They were killed, quite simply, because if they were not, they would become a serious problem. Now, because of human morality, a lot of areas, especially the outer-lying areas closer to the other borders, who had contact with other people who didn't follow our very strict mandates, had trouble, in many cases, murdering their own children. You call it murder, we call it balance and conservation, because honestly, it is balance and conservation. Anyway, so what would end up occurring, right, is some of the communities, the women would sneakily save their sons. They'd sneak them off to these secret little communities in the woods, hidden from the gods. Now, if they didn't cause any problems, we knew where every human was. There was no escaping us. It was impossible. However, if you don't cause any problems, we kind of turned a blind eye most of the time to these little communities of men. As long as they kept to themselves, they were allowed to exist. They were allowed to live. However, more often than not, this is not what happened. If you get a group of men unwilling to fight, unwilling to protect, who suddenly start thinking themselves more important than they actually are, they get into a group and start convincing themselves of a whole bunch of different crazy shit. Like money's a good idea, rape's a good idea, murder's a good idea, and slavery's a fucking good idea. Like, well, basically, we can do whatever the hell we want because we're men and we're stronger and we just take it. So basically, instead of being the protectors of the communities, the guardians of all that is right and good and balanced, they became the very problem we were trying to stop. And they would get into a group, they'd roll into a community. Now, the men's job specifically, very, very specifically, was to protect, to identify dangers and to protect from them, or to inform one of us if the threat was beyond them, like a fucking volcanic eruption or giant fissure or flood or any, like some giant boar that just was bigger than them, just rushed through the town and messed up a whole bunch of stuff. So we would roll in and we'd deal with this rather catastrophic freaking problem. So when these groups of men rolled into these villages, it wasn't that difficult for them to convince the women that there was this huge fucking danger that wasn't real. The best one I found, or the worst one, was when the men went into a village and convinced all the women. This was a fucking large settlement too, at the bottom of an inactive, or what we thought was an inactive volcano. And it was a lovely community the last time we went there. And what this group of men had done is gone in and convinced the women that the volcano was going to erupt unless they start sacrificing their children to the volcano. Basically, female children, virgins, right? Because then if you get rid of the females, more males can be born, and then they can use those males to initiate more control and rape and pillage and destroy more and just be fucking disgusting pigs, which is what a lot of men on our world do, as you all well know. So they would start sacrificing female babies to this fucking volcano, convincing all the women, and get them like super scared. Oh, it's going to erupt. At any time there was any kind of earth tremor, we need to sacrifice more, and you need to give us more, and let us rape you more, and let us pillage more, and let us just be bigger assholes, or everyone's going to die. So they ended up enslaving basically an entire fucking community, and just slaves and rape, and it was fucking disgusting. Anyway, so the volcano was going to erupt, and we didn't always know when. I think I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again because now you might understand a little more context. So I've rolled into this area, and the volcano was already erupting. There's pyroclastic flows, there's gas, there's a fissure right through the center of the town with gas and all kinds of shit coming out of it, and people have died. Like, it's bad, bro. And I'm like, where are all these fucking people? And I get over, and they're all kneeling at the edge of the town, looking up at the volcano, praying, like praying to the volcano didn't destroy them. And this is that time I told you, they looked up at me and said, oh, great God, kneel and pray with us all, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're fucking kidding me, here we go. Just, again, this has just happened again. This was very common. If I went to an area that was corrupted, 9 out of 10 times it was a group of men. The 10th time it was a woman who had corrupted a group of men. It was actually 8 and 2. No, but anyway, it's fucking unimportant. So that happened, and that's why every single one of those had to be unfortunately removed because they were so seriously corrupted. Another time that was good. I was directed by my sisters to a volcano, and I've turned up at the town. This is one of the happy towns where the men, the women, and everyone lives peacefully, and they love the environment, and they sing and dance, and it's a very beautiful place. But the damn, again, like, volcanoes were about the worst bloody thing where we were, because our area was around Sicily. And the super glacier put quite a bit of pressure on the area near where we were, where that super volcano was. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was very similar to Yellowstone in a lot of areas back in the day. Like 20,000 years ago. Anyway, it's not important. So anyway, we've rolled up, and there's going to be a big old disaster. So I'm trying to explain to everyone that we have to go. There's going to be a disaster. And the biggest issue we always faced, or I especially, I can't tell you much about my brothers and sisters, but my biggest issue that I always faced when I turned up was everyone expected a magic show. Like, or, this was worse, great God, great being of blah, blah, frickin' blah. Use your power to make the volcano not angry anymore. Oh, yeah, can't do that. It's a bit beyond me. Sorry. Not a god. Just a walking dude who happens to be 20 feet taller than you are and burdened with your care. But thanks for the vote of confidence. Now, would you mind starting to pack your wagons? Because we really got to go, man. This bitch is going to go kaboo. And after some convincing, usually it was the children, funnily enough, that started convincing the adults. It was always a weird scene because they expected so much more than I could do. And were always disappointed when I was trying to explain to them that, no, I'm just here to make you move. I I can't do any of the insane, stupid shit you make up and write in your books about magic and Santa Claus and his giant butt hairs. And, man, none of that is real. God's hand and blah, blah, blah. Dude, the Anunnaki can create projections in the sky. We can create projections in the sky. And volcanoes erupt and wipe out whole cities. And there are beings within the heaven space, the Arma, that do govern life and death. But in the corporeal world, we have the same vessels you guys have. Ours was a lot bigger than yours and slightly different physiologically, but we don't have superpowers. We had voices in a thicker atmosphere that could resonate at a frequency and make stone liquid, but we don't have powers, man. All we know is what's going to happen. We just know more, so much more about everything that we're able to predict shit in advance. We just know about 100,000 to 1,000,000 times more than the average human. That is literally the only thing that makes us different. And that's not that special, honestly. It's a huge burden. One that most of us don't want, but we continue to do because there isn't anything else for us. That was what we were made to do. That was the promise we made. And we are beings of our word. We were given the life promised us, and we'll fulfill our damn purpose. So anyway, finally everyone's got their wagons packed, and they're moving slowly, very slowly. And this one day, I've told this story before, but this one day I'm watching this procession of wagons. And this dude with this giant yak ox creature with like 4 horns from like this pre-flood thing. He's this tiny little human with this massive, I don't know how he tamed this beast, but anyway, doesn't matter. It was big. It wasn't big compared to me, but it was fucking big compared to him. Anyway, so he's going slow, and then he's kind of tripped, and I've made the mistake of touching him. But I patted him on the back and said, come on, buddy, just moved along. And he's dropped to his knees, and all those people around him have spread out. And, and they're starting to pray. And I'm like, no. I go, like, come on. Yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah, cool, yeah, come on. And then the entire volcano just blows the top off. This massive shockwave washes over the area as everyone's just knocked to the ground. Animals are freaking out. And now the dude is chasing his ox rather than us all trying to get it to move. Another time I actually had to grab a guy and his beast and run with them, which was very interesting to explain when I get back. Because, see, we had this thing about people not touching us, mainly because we only had one body. We couldn't rebirth and come back like you guys can. We only had one body that lasted as long as we could make it last. So we're a bit touchy about being touched, or about having to fight, or about letting corruption spread, because if it got too bad, we couldn't deal with it. It was beyond us. And we might end up being killed. There were multiple times I nearly lost my life in the time as a walking watcher of my people. One of the worst was probably 3 or 4 centuries before the Anunnaki came back. It wasn't long after Odin, we got word that Odin and Thor had actually been killed by humans, which was fucking surprising. But yeah, they were killed by humans. And this one day, I'm walking along along our borders. I remember this better than anything else. It was quite a wide dirt road. Most of the roads in our kingdom were quite large, white stone, but this was one of the few dirt roads. And it came to this log bridge, and I got this weird feeling, and I paused, and out of the scrub, these 4. No, fucking 3. No, it was 3. Sorry, so it wasn't 4. It was 3. It was 3 demi-human females. Okay, dressed in leather, right? This weird binding on their head that made it kind of pointy and tapered back. Their faces were covered. They had these fucking twin blades, right? And they stood like animals. They were tall too. They were like 8, 9 feet tall. These women. They were incredibly slender. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then they attacked me. Like, full on attack me. And they were so fast and so agile. And every time I tried to hit them, I'd cop a slash. And I tried to kick them and I'd cop a slash. And I got slashed so many times. Eventually, they would have got me. They would have won. I would not have won this fucking fight. The way I won was I ran. Because they were shorter, I could outrun them. In the thicker atmosphere, I was able to use my size, and then I got to a kind of like a gorge or ravine, this valley, and I literally jumped it. Looked back, and they were sliding down the hill, and that was, I managed to run, I outrun them, and I got away. And got to a nearby village, and I needed care. It was very strange too, because we were considered gods by the humans. And I've turned up to this human village 2 days later, basically collapsed in the middle of town, and fucking passed out from blood loss. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I don't remember too clearly everything, but I know that I got to the town, and the next thing I remember, I've woken up. I don't know how long it was, but I'm covered in fucking moss and bits of animal hide and all manner of crazy shit. It smelled terrible, but I felt not too bad, so obviously I was being healed. And they built like this shelter over the top of me, just lying in the middle of town. They'd even managed to get me onto my back, because I fell face first, and they had somehow got ropes and shit under me and actually turned me over, and built this shelter and stuff over me, got my head up, put something under my head. It was crazy. I must have been unconscious for a week, more, maybe more, until I finally came to, and I was scared, terrified, because I was quite weak. I hadn't properly drunk or eaten in a few days, in fucking that entire time I was unconscious. And our role was to watch over these people, and I nearly lost my freaking life. If we died, see, this was why we cared for our lives so damn much, because if we died, there was no coming back. There was no coming back. And if we're gone, there's no one to watch our lands. There's no one to protect our kingdom. There's no one to keep the freaking Olympians as guardians and every other goddamn psychopath from coming in and trying to steal our people, trying to steal our perfection, because it became like a sport for them in the end. It was a nightmare. I'm gonna finish this video with a story that I don't know very well, because it's a human story. We don't understand how you depict the spaces we create and watch over. You each see them in a slightly different way depending on what your perception shows you. But this is very accurate. The story of Sharon, the ferryman. Because that is a representation I remember creating. Because it was a way, the boat ride across the River of Souls was a way for the mind to slowly transition from life to death. See, that isn't there now. It's basically you just thrown into it, you bump up against it, and if you're unable to freaking pass through, you destroy yourself. It's very bad. It's not fun. Nothing we can do about it. But anyway, before you fucked up our thing over the last century and a half, Sharon the ferryman, this representation, carried within his hand an oar, right, that rowed the boat. Now, you'll know the story that he would often offer it to passengers within the boat. All right, now, I want to explain what this oar represents for me, for us, for my people, for our responsibility, for what we were created to do. This oar represents all of human knowledge. It represents all of human responsibility from the very moment of our creation to the final moment of the last human's breath. This oar is accountability for every one of your sins and every one of your achievements. Within this oar is the justification for our very existence. For that is what we do. We are now here to try and prove to those who made us we are still worth preserving, because we are on the verge of complete annihilation. Right on the knife's edge. You slip and slice. It's all over. This ore holds the responsibility to stand in front of our great masters in 1.35 gravity for more than 3 hours and explain why we deserve to exist, to list the positives over the negatives of our very existence. Now, I ask any of you, will you take it? Can you even see it? Can you perceive what taking this from me represents? Because I can pass it to any who is worthy. But I doubt any can even see it. Anyway, that was fun. It was kind of me rambling for half an hour. Anyway, I hope you all have a good day.